The media has been keen to tell us today that migration from the EU to the UK is lower than it has been in 4 years. But there's much, much more to this story. The BBC, The Guardian and Sky News have all been reporting today that migration from the EU to the UK is lower than it has been in 4 years. But there's much, much more to this story. In fact, I wonder what they think it means that there's fewer people coming from the EU to the UK now. Probably were all racist because of Brexit, right? But as I say, there's more to this story, and actually the numbers aren't necessarily accurate. So bear with me here. You might not know this, but the UK doesn't have an effective measure on the people coming in and out of the UK from the EU as migrants. They actually don't have the solid numbers, no matter how many visas they give out, which are surely stored on a computer somewhere. We just don't have the numbers. The whole thing is basically guesswork. It's performed on a basis of samples. People agree to be questioned about their movement once they reach major airports in the UK. And this system is called the International Passenger Survey. And it's actually a system we've been using since the 60s. It's ancient. So there's 240 IPS officials are found at airports and ports around the UK. And they question every 10th, every 20th, every 30th person and ask if they'll take a survey. Now, the BBC reported on this, and they said that the IPS agents interview around 300,000 people every year, which sounds like a lot of people, but it's not. It's only 0.2% of the 200 million who enter and leave the UK within the same period. And Alp Mehmet, the co-chairman of Migration Watch, fantastic organisation, has told the press that they believe the number of EU migrants in the UK could have been undercounted since 2004 by around 500,000. I think specifically 508,000, they said. Now that is a huge, huge number. So when we talk about the lowest numbers ever from the EU, how do we really know? And by the way, EU immigration is still high. The Office for National Statistics reports that the number of EU citizens who came to the UK last year was still 240,000. That's a lot of people. And 139,000 left. That leaves around 101,000 more EU citizens coming to the UK over 12 months. That's a lot of people. And then we've got to remember there's non-EU migration as well. That's still a huge problem. Now, net migration to the UK from non-EU countries rose to the highest levels since 2010, approaching 227,000 people. But if you've ever watched my show before, you surely know that I don't like to just talk about net migration. I think gross migration is important as well. So we had a total of 630,000 people entering the UK within 1 year. That's roughly 1% of the UK population entering the UK from all over the world within 1 year. We have absolutely no idea how many people live in the UK and how many people are migrating to the UK. We rely on a 1960s method of sampling instead of computers to see how many people are moving to the UK from the EU. And to top it off, our politicians have been completely useless on illegal immigration. And the Tories have categorically failed consistently to reach their own target of bringing in tens of thousands of migrants within a period of a year, as opposed to hundreds of thousands. 630,000 people came into the UK last year, and non-EU migration rose by over 50,000. Make no mistake, these levels of immigration will transform our country, and Brexit could help resolve some of it. Brexit can't stop most non-EU migration, but it can stop EU migration. And owing to the International Passenger Survey being so utterly useless and the UK having absolutely no idea just how many EU citizens are living in the UK, it just so turns out that Brexit might be more important for immigration than we ever thought.